Summit, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he has no plans to meet Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Let's listen in.
I mean, what they did was terrible. They made up a fake statement by President Reagan. Reagan was a big supporter of tariffs when needed, and we need tariffs for national security, and they totally turned it around because they're getting hurt by tariffs and we're gaining by tariffs. But they took a commercial saying the exact opposite, Canada, and so I'm very disappointed in Canada. They lied. I mean, it was
The announcement comes after Canada indicated its willingness to resume trade talks with the United States. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump terminated talks with Canada last Thursday following an anti-tariff advertisement released by Ontario's provincial government. The video used footage of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan to warn against tariffs, although the message misrepresented Reagan's viewpoint of circumstantial tariffs. Speaking further on the controversial ad, the U.S. president has criticized the commercial as misleading and said it caused confusion over U.S. trade policy. He has further emphasized that the United States is using tariffs only to protect national security and reclaim economic losses from previous administrations. Meanwhile, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford has confirmed that the ads will continue to air during the weekend's World Series games to reach a larger U.S. audience. Ford has also noted that the campaign will be paused starting Monday to allow trade talks to resume between U.S. and Canada. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he hopes for a great meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Speaking on his way to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Trump has said that he looks forward to discussions aimed at ending the ongoing trade war between the world's two largest economies. Let's listen in to what he has said.
We have a lot of things to discuss, including our farmers. They have a lot of things to discuss. The various trade deals that have been made in the past, and some broken, some not broken, but we've got many things. I think it's going to turn out to be a very good meeting.
The meeting with Xi Jinping is scheduled for the final day of Trump's trip to the region in South Korea, where leaders are expected to explore ways to reach a mutually beneficial trade agreement. Now we are joined by Meher Khurana. She's a correspondent. Meher, thank you for joining us. What is expected out of this meeting between the two leaders? Is Trump willing to cut back on tariffs imposed on China?
Well, yes, Asuma, major developments taking place today, and US President Donald Trump has made these comments while he was on board the Air Force One for his trip to South Korea. Now, despite Trump calling his meeting and hoping that his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping will be a great meeting. Now, despite these claims, let's not forget that Trump has also claimed that he will slap 155% tariffs on Chinese imports starting November 1st if China does not cooperate with the United States. Now, Trump is en route to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, which is supposed to take place in South Korea from October 31st through November 1st, 2025. Now, US President Donald Trump is also set to meet the newly elected Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, as well as the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Trump will also hold talks with the South Korean President Lee Jae-myung while at the APEC summit. And let's not forget, the main meeting between Xi Jinping and Trump is also set to take place. Now, to answer your question about the possible outcomes between this meeting, now first outcome could be that China commits to buying more US products and import more US products such as soya bean, and it has already been a major exporter of soya bean from the United States, and they may also increase their imports of the Boeing aircraft. Meanwhile, the US can also ease some restrictions on China's advanced semiconductors that it exports, And Beijing may also loosen its control on rare earth minerals. Now these are the expected outcomes, and let's see what the APEC summit and the developments that take place from there, and we'll bring you all the developments as and when we get them. Over to you, Asma.
Thank you very much, Meher, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next news. In Seoul, more than 1,000 protesters have gathered in the heart of the city to voice strong opposition to U.S. President Donald Trump's upcoming visit for the APEC summit. The protesters were particularly angered by President Trump's insistence that South Korea invest $350 billion upfront in the United States as part of a trade and tariff deal. Let's listen into what one of them has said.
나라 살림을 더 많이 지금 돌봐야 되는 상황에 미국이 너무 뜬금없이 강압적으로 그리고 강탈적이라고 저는 생각하는데요. 3,500억 달러라고 하는 말도 안 되는 거의 뭐 우리나라의 외환 보유고의 80%에 육박하는 비용을 갑작스럽게 미국에 투자하라고 요구하는 거 너무 강압적이라고 생각하고요. 그래서 대한민국이 이것에 대해서 더 거부 의사를 당당히 밝혀야 된다고. 특히 다음 주에 아펙이 앞두고 있고 이제 트럼프 대통령이 방한한다. 그리고 한미 정상에 뭔가 회담이 있거나 북미 정상회담 뭐 이런 여러 굵직한 사안들을 앞두고 있다고 하는데요. 이럴 때 대한민국 국민들의 분노를 오늘부터 더 강력하게 좀 전하고 싶어서 집회에 나왔습니다.
Trump has said that the agreement would see U.S. duties on Korean imports reduced to 15%, though key tariffs on automobiles remain unresolved. Seoul officials, however, maintain that much of the $350 billion would take the form of loans and guarantees, not direct investment. To avoid disrupting currency markets, President Lee Jae-myung is expected to meet with President Trump on October 29th to discuss the deal further. Now moving on, and we stay in the region, Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi has said that she has told U.S. President Donald Trump in a telephone call on October 25th that strengthening the alliance between the between their countries was her top priority. The call came days before President Trump's planned visit to Tokyo on a regional tour and was the first conversation between the two leaders since Takaichi took office earlier this week. Takaichi has also stated that they both agreed to work towards elevating the Japan-US alliance to new heights. President Trump is due to visit Japan from October 27th on his way to crunch trade talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has promised to secure the return of all the seized hostages held in Gaza. This comes after he has met with the families of 2 American captives during his visit to Israel. Rubio has posted on X saying that the U.S. will not forget the lives of hostages who died in Hamas captivity. He has also promised to work until the remains of Itay Chen, Omer Neutra, and all other remaining hostages are returned. The Israeli group Hostages and Missing Families Forum has welcomed Rubio's remarks, stating that 13 hostages need to come home and their families deserve closure. The group has urged authorities to continue until the last hostage is safely returned. Now we stay in the region. The Israeli Defense Forces have reported that a commander in Hezbollah's elite Radwan force has been killed in a drone strike which occurred in southern Lebanon earlier today. The Hezbollah operative, now identified as Zain al-Abidin Hussein Fatuni, had led anti-tank missile operations and was involved in restoring Hezbollah infrastructure in the southern region. His activities violated the existing understandings between Israel and Lebanon. According to reports, the Hezbollah commander has been targeted while driving in the village of Jib Shit near Haruf in the Nabatea area. Meanwhile, Lebanese authorities too have reported 1 person has died and another wounded in the attack. Now we move on to our next news. In Libya, thousands of Syrian refugees have begun registering for voluntarily return to their homeland after Damascus announced it would provide free tickets to those wishing to come back. People were seen outside a government building in Tripoli as officials proceeded travel documents and passports. The initiative by Syria's foreign ministry comes as many displaced families say conditions have improved back home in Syria and they hope to rebuild their lives. Thousands of Syrians fled to Libya during the country's civil war, and the move marks one of the first large-scale repatriation efforts in recent years. Let's in fact listen into what some of the refugees have said.
وكانت كنا حياتنا مهددة في خطر. طلعنا من سوريا وجينا عشنا في ليبيا، صرنا هون أنا صار لي يعني بالنسبة لي 5 سنوات. وهلا سوريا رجعت ورجعت أحسن من قبل بكتير وراح نرجع على بلدنا الحمد لله.
هلا نحن وضعنا بسوريا بعده لسه ما كثير مستقر، لهيك عم نمشي امورنا القانونيه بليبيا كرمال اذا نقدر نرجع على سوريا ونرجع نفوت على ليبيا بشكل قانوني اكثر. كونك بدك تعمل اقامتك انت بدك تكون اوراقك اول شيء نظاميه وقانونيه لحتى تقدر تدير اقامه.
اكيد نحن بنسعى انه نشتغل نعمر نرجع نأمر من اول وجديد الدمار اللي صار وشي اللي صار. اكيد هلا اليد العامله بدها تكتر يعني وتصير في شغل ان شاء الله.
Now we move on to our next news. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif has warned the Afghan Taliban of an open war if peace talks in Istanbul fail. He has said Islamabad has the option to launch a military action but hopes for a peaceful resolution. These remarks come as border tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan escalate following recent airstrikes and clashes. Both the countries have agreed to a ceasefire after deadly fighting, but disputes over cross-border attacks have threatened stability. The Istanbul talks, which were facilitated by Qatar and Turkey, started on Saturday and are expected to continue into Sunday. Both sides aim to address security concerns and prevent a relapse into violence after the worst border fighting since the Taliban's 2021 takeover of Kabul. After the talks in Doha on October 19th, Pakistan launched airstrikes in Afghanistan that has killed 10 people, including 2 children. After this attack, Taliban has accused Pakistan of breaching the ceasefire. Now we move on to Europe. Ukrainian officials have confirmed that Russian missiles and drones struck Kyiv overnight, killing 2 people and injuring 13 others. The strikes hit multiple locations, including energy and infrastructure sites. Officials have said that residential buildings and a kindergarten were damaged, sparking several fires across the city. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko has posted on X saying that Russia is trying to create a humanitarian catastrophe as the winter approaches. He has called the attack a deliberate act of terror against civilians. Sviridenko also praised emergency workers for their quick response and urged allies to provide stronger air defense systems to protect Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has said that Russian strikes also targeted the homes in Dnipro, Kharkiv, and Sumy. On the other hand, Russia's defense ministry has claimed the attacks were aimed at Ukraine's military and energy facilities. It has also stated that Russian forces shot down 121 Ukrainian drones overnight, including 7 headed towards Moscow. Now for this discussion, we go back to Meher Khurana. She's a correspondent, joins us live. Meher, what more can you tell us? Despite sanctions, these strikes are on the rise. Did these sanctions at all have an impact on the de-escalation of this war?
Well, Asma, sanctions on Russia have majorly hit the Russian economy, with the GDP of Russia falling down drastically. Now, this has also impacted the Russian energy exports that Russia does. And meanwhile, despite numerous rounds of international sanctions on Russia, Russia has still continued its strikes on key infrastructure in Ukraine. And Russia has been able to maintain or even increase its production of missiles, and despite sanctions from EU, from other countries, Russia still continues to do that. Just like today, Russia has struck the Sumy region in Ukraine, where it has killed 2 people and has left 13 people injured. And the Ukrainian foreign minister has called these attacks a terror attack. And meanwhile, on the other hand, the Russian forces have shot down 121 Ukrainian drones overnight, as it claims. So yes, the sanctions have majorly impacted Russia and their economy, to be very precise.
Thank you, Meher, for sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next news. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul is expected to travel to Malaysia to sign a ceasefire deal with Cambodia. He will also meet US President Donald Trump ahead of the signing of the ceasefire. This comes as the Thai Prime Minister pulled out of the ASEAN summit, which is set to take place in South Korea. This is due to the death of Thailand's Queen Mother, Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, on Saturday today. The ceasefire agreement between Thailand and Cambodia aims to end border clashes that has left dozens dead and displaced during intense fighting in July. Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has requested the signing ceremony to take place on Sunday morning before returning to Thailand. A Thai foreign minister spokesperson has said that the schedule is still being finalized, but the Prime Minister is likely to be present for the ceremony. Let's have a look at what the spokesperson of Thailand's Minister of Foreign Affairs has said.
I can tell you right now that he's very likely to be here. We're working out his schedule right now as we speak. He might arrive very late tonight or tomorrow morning just before the signing, and he has to rush back to Thailand to attend the ceremony of the Queen Mother. So it's yet to be finalized, but more likely than not, he should be here in time for the signing. United States came into the picture as the broker and became the witness. They have facilitated, let's say, the speed to which this has happened. But by no means, this is still a bilateral mechanism that has taken place. And what we look for is sincerity from the Cambodian side.
Now we move on to our next news. Malaysia and South Africa have agreed to strengthen their bilateral relations during President Cyril Ramaphosa's official visit to Kuala Lumpur. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has welcomed the South African leader with a guard of honor before the two sides held talks on trade, investment, and global cooperation. Let's listen in to Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim.
President Cyril Ramaphosa, to us, represent also a new voice, a voice of conscience, this tenacity and conviction, defending justice, human rights across the continent in Africa, and more so up to Gaza. They are a very prominent player in the Hague Initiative, in the ICC, and of course on behalf of Malaysia generally, I must also express my profound gratitude for this courage to defend what is right. The Malaysian strategy is to expand new trading partners whilst continuing with existing conventional arrangements. We have decided to open up. That's why we are members in terms of expanding the trade, intra-ASEAN trade, and focus in Asia. But we also realize that through BRICS, we have now been very committed to expand our trade relations with Africa and Latin America.
Both leaders emphasized the importance of expanding economic ties with UNRWA, highlighting Malaysia's strategy to engage new trading partners through platforms like BRICS. Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa has described the meeting as a key step towards revitalizing relations between the two countries and reaffirmed support for global justice, including solidarity with Palestine. Let's listen in to President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Today constitutes an important step towards what I would call revitalizing and strengthening our relations. We have reconfirmed that trade and investment opportunities need to be expanded between our two countries, particularly during this period of geopolitical tensions and challenges, where trade is being used as a weapon. We do believe, as you do too, that we need to expand our market base, and having been so closely related to one another and it tapered down over the years, we would like to recalibrate that and make sure that our ties get stronger and stronger. Our support for Palestine was not just a fanciful act. It is born out of our own experience during our consultation or bilateral. You did mention that the concept of apartheid.
Now we move on to Africa. Ivorians have went to the polls with incumbent Alassane Ouattara seeking that he has hinted may be his final term. The 83-year-old credited his nearly 15 years in office with delivering economic growth and relative stability in the West African nation. Let's listen into what some voters have said.
Je viens de voter un président de choix. J'aimerais aussi inviter à tous les Ivoiriens et les Ivoiriennes de venir voter massivement dans la paix et dans la cohésion sociale, venir voter les présidents de choix.
Ce que je dis à les Ivoiriens, de sortir massivement pour pouvoir bien voter. On vote pour nous, on vote pour nous-mêmes, pas pour quelqu'un. C'est notre avenir qu'on cherche.
Ouattara faces a field that includes two former government ministers as well as the ex-wife and former spokesperson of his predecessor. Laurent Gbagbo, the incumbent backed by a strong political party, enters the race as the clear favorite. Ouattara, a former international banker and deputy managing director of the International Monetary Fund, came to power in 2011, following a 4-month civil war that claimed around 3,000 people's lives, triggered by Gbagbo's refusal to accept defeat in the 2010 election. This year, both Gbagbo and former Credit Suisse CEO Tidjane Thiam were declared ineligible, leaving Ouattara with a decisive advantage in the vote. 2 people were killed and several others critically injured in a mass shooting at a large weekend party in southeastern North Carolina. Authorities have said that 13 individuals were shot during this incident. The shooting occurred in a rural area outside Maxton, about 150 kilometers southwest of Raleigh, near the South Carolina border. More than 150 people fled the location before law enforcement arrived. Robeson County Sheriff Burns Wilkinson has said that investigators from multiple agencies are working to identify suspects and gather information about the incident. Authorities have reiterated that there is no current